if that's, connected to the internet. I can't trust it.
You really are
We
a
will call
teenager.
this meeting to order at what is very likely, it's 2:32.
Yep.
Um,
I don't know. I remember counting.
and do we want to do a roll call of all the members?
Mr. Connors?
Here.
Mr. Harshaw?
Here.
Ms. Barhu?
Here.
Mr. George?
Here.
Mr. Betts?
Here.
Chairman Bowler?
Wow, here, everyone's here today. Introduction of city staff, we have Ms. Melissa Phillips, our Development Review Technician, Mr. Ben Gross, our Deputy City Attorney, Ms. Becky Groom, our Board Secretary, and our lovely IT Department. Approval of the minutes for January 19th, 2022. Do we have any changes or comments? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
I second it.
Ms. Barhu. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes of January 19th are approved. Last time we had a continued case, so do we read that one into the record again, or? Okay, so I guess we'll start with that one.
A request by Garrett Kavanaugh of DR Horton Home Builders on behalf of ADJ Champions Quarters LLC and DR Horton for a variance from Article 6, Section 68C4A of the City of Daytona Beach Land Development Code to increase the permitted fence height along the rear property boundary from 6 feet to 8 feet. This will allow an 8-foot-high fence to be erected along the rear property boundaries of lots 1 to 20, which abut an existing single-family neighborhood. The properties are located on Wicker Way, lots 1 to 20, in the new developed subdivision Champions Quarters.
Thank you. Do we have someone in the audience to speak? Yes, come on up. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Garrett, DR Horton,
Okay, and your address?
10192 Dowden Road,
Okay.
Orlando, Florida.
Okay, thank you. Just give us a summary of your case, and then we'll probably have some questions for you.
So basically, the way our lots are engineered, comparing the height of the elevation of the finished floor to the rear lot line, the finished floor elevation on average is probably about 3 feet above the back lot line. So the reasoning for changing the fence from a 6 foot to an 8 foot is to shield our residents and also the adjoining neighborhood. And I feel like it would be beneficial for DR Horton and also the adjoining neighborhood because the adjoining neighborhood would also be shielded from our construction, possibly noises or anything and whatnot that we would be going on during these stages of construction and actively building. And also for our residents that, or if a 6 foot fence would be installed on the lot line, it would be, we would see right over the fence into the adjoining neighborhood and also vice versa for the residents on the existing neighborhood as well.
Okay, so there's that swale there. Is the fence going to be where the construction fence is in the picture, or will it be at the bottom of that
It's
swale?
going to be at the bottom of the swale
swale,
because that is the vertical lot line.
Okay. Does anyone have questions or comments?
I have some.
Yeah.
It appeared to me when I went out to take a look at the site that the properties on the existing neighborhood also drain into that swale. Is that correct?
I have not taken a look at the plans for the existing neighborhood for where their drainage is.
Okay. Well, it appeared to me by my eyesight, it seemed like that happened.
Done everything.
And so there's a lot of vegetation along that property line. There are some trees that have been left that are straddle the line, or how do you, are you going to propose making adjustments to that?
We would run it as close to the lot line. If there was a tree directly in the middle of the lot line, then I guess we would have to pivot around the tree on our side of the property, go around the tree, and we would return to the lot line.
Okay. The other thing, have you looked at the putting in a regulation fence that'd be 6 feet high, that would be more towards the top of the swale onto your properties, and it doesn't have to be a totally long single fence. It could be fences that are broken in with openings so that you're only screening where the windows, patio is on the units versus the whole stretch length of that several hundred feet?
We have thought
Hundreds of
about,
feet.
we have thought about that, but if we were to install the fence on top of the swale, then we would be cutting off about 10 to 15 feet of property that our homeowners would probably eventually like to enjoy.
Well, how are they gonna enjoy a drainage swale? They can't put playgrounds in there. They can't put anything in there. This is a rental community,
This is a build to rent, yes.
build to rent?
Yep.
Eventually maybe for sale in the future?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. I'm not liking this proposal because the fence is so very much long. There'll be neighbors on both sides of the fence that might become friends, kids might become friends. And they'd have to go all the way around to get to friends' houses. Dividing this off between neighborhoods, I just don't feel it's the best thing. I think the big 8-foot-high fence actually doesn't do any good. Either way, a 6-foot-high regulatory fence would fit in well, being put in the right places at the top of the swale.
To your,
It'd make for better maintenance of along the property line on both sides, and that's just how I feel.
Yeah, okay, so the swale is part of the property, and is there then does the other property line start there, or is there some sort of an easement in between
to my
the
understanding
properties?
that the back of our property line is the lot line.
Okay,
So the property line is the lot line.
Okay.
So our fence, or I guess swale, would be on the front side of the fence, or the lot and property line.
okay.
It would go all the way back.
Madam Chair, do you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is that swale something that you all constructed? Is it in your subdivision property?
Yes,
It is. And did you construct that swale as part of the stormwater system for that subdivision?
correct.
Okay.
And is that swale in a drainage easement?
I can tell you, Mr. Betts, that, and I don't have the plat in front of me, but if the city required that swale for stormwater drainage, then there may be a stormwater easement for that. But if it's not draining city property, it likely wouldn't be a public easement to the city because it's, stormwater flowing from private property. However, the Land Development Code does require for subdivisions that they be developed in accordance with the Stormwater Management Plan, which has to be enforced. And to be frank, I'll tell you, the reason why I asked that question is I don't know, and I don't know if Ms. Phillips, whether construction of a fence would interfere with that drainage, which could be an issue under the Stormwater Management Plan. I'm not testifying one way or the other, but that could be an additional
That's
issue.
why I asked my
Yeah,
first question.
How
so,
can we find that out before we make our decision? Because I notice I live out in that area also, and there is a lot of water accumulating since they've been doing all this construction.
well, the question I had too was in conjunction with that, could they put I know they can put a 6-foot fence for the height, but would they be allowed to put it in that drainage,
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, it seems like it kind of hinges on your question, as well.
I can tell you that there's nothing in the Land Development Code that per se prohibits a fence in a swale
Okay,
or a ditch
okay,
or an easement for that
Okay.
matter. But there is a requirement in the Land Development Code that a subdivision be built in accordance with the Stormwater Management Plan, that that plan be adhered to. And one of the functions of that plan is to funnel stormwater into certain locations that are approved by the city. And I'm not an engineer, so I don't know if that would interfere. And the issue that I'm thinking about, there may not be any logical difference between an 8-foot fence being built and a 6-foot fence, because either one would go into a swale.
right,
It won't
right,
matter.
exactly.
But it's possible that maybe neither fence should go into the swale because of the stormwater drainage issue, which I wasn't really
Right.
aware of when I.
And I feel like that's the question we have. However, I don't think that that's the question before this board. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
They haven't asked for a variance from that requirement, but it may be that requirement would apply, and I think it's worth unless, Ms. Phillips, you know the answer to that definitively, getting somebody, I don't know if that would be somebody from Public Works or one of our engineering
Okay.
staff to review that issue and see if it is an issue. And if it is, then I think the variance application would need to be modified to include a variance from whatever provision it is
Okay.
that would otherwise prohibit.
Okay, so that could be something that,
Yeah.
okay.
I have a similar directional question. Have you all considered a natural barrier?
A natural barrier?
Yeah, like foliage?
Well, it was actually, it was removed during land development.
I'm sorry.
It was removed during land development and now
Built-
Right.
buffer.
But would it, have you considered, as opposed to building a fence, 8-foot-high fence with a decent hurricane has a bigger chance of going down than a 6-foot fence? But I'm not an engineer either. However, if you have a natural barrier that you're going to put through there, I think it would meet your request for blindage, but it would also be more attractive than a straight, just 6-foot fence. Quite frankly, I feel like, you're in prison, but that's just my observation.
There's a better design alternative,
Yeah.
and that's some fencing, some tree barrier, some fencing, some tree barrier. And that could all be out of the swale, not causing any stormwater problems, and meeting our code, but not having to have any variance for height.
Yeah,
And when I see a variance come in, I want to see that there's no other alternative, right? There's a reasonableness for their request. Here, I think there's some other way of going about solving the problem and meeting our code.
I had the same question, because when I read the packet, I see what you're saying about the swale going down 12 to 24 inches, and so the fence would have to be higher, and, at that level, I agree. But, what are some of the other reasons that you're asking to use a fence versus some of the other options? You mentioned some visual things about the neighborhood and things like that. Is there safety concerns, or, is it just to keep the neighbors apart? And part B to that question is, because it is a rental community, would each house not be able to choose their own fence? A lot of times these neighborhoods get built and there is no fence in the back, and people kind of, if you have a dog, you choose to put your own fence in. Would the restrictions prevent the renters from putting in their own fence?
Well, the restrictions wouldn't prevent the renters from putting in their own fence. They have every right to put a side yard fence running all the way back to the property line, of course not jeopardizing the flow of water in a swale. But basically, another reason for this is just because the way the attractiveness of the backyards that we are abutting to they're not really upkept, and they don't really look aesthetically pleasing to a new home buyer, I guess.
Okay.
And your fence wouldn't look good to the buyers of future homes behind them. Like a big wall.
Well, it seems to be the trend I see with a lot of these production subdivisions now. There's one that borders in Dunlot, and you start heading south on the interstate. There's this white vinyl privacy fence that I think it must go for 2 miles. Wow. And it's not very attractive. And I'm thinking, I was in the insurance business for years. I'm thinking the first storm that comes through, that thing's going to be laid to waste because it's PVC. And it seems to be the trend right now. They're putting up these massive privacy fences everywhere instead of what Mr. Conroy was talking about, these natural barriers. It seems to have gone away. And my question would be okay, so you all construct this fence. So when the storm comes through, who fixes it next time?
The HOA would absolutely have to fix the fence if they're
So this subdivision will have an HOA that will be responsible for that fence.
correct.
Okay. Fully funded HOA, et cetera. You all are setting up the HOA, or
Yes.
upon completion of construction, et cetera,
Yep.
you all set it up, and then
Then the homeowners
the
will
communities will
essentially
take
take
care of it?
it.
Okay. Because that's the other concern I have is I was thinking about if there's no HOA, then all the people are going to go, well, it's not my fence. And then it's all
Correct.
laid to waste. And yeah, I think the bigger question I have in my mind now, bringing up the stormwater drainage, is can we put a fence in a stormwater area? Because it would certainly could create an issue with debris clogging up and everything else. I think that's the bigger
Me
question I
too.
have.
I'm really
I know
wondering.
Yeah, I know we're voting on a how high the fence could be, but I guess, Ms. Phillips, do you know the answer?
The LDC allows for fences to be put in stormwater easements, and it's just if they need to be removed for any reason, it's up to the property owner to, in their expense, to remove or replace.
The second question I have is where can a fence be placed? Is there a setback requirement on a fence on a subdivision?
Fences can be put on the lot lines.
So it's on the lot line? Okay.
Well, one thing I want to point out in response to another question that you asked, Mr. Harshaw, is this subdivision is zoned conventionally. There is no planned development agreement approved for this, which would be required in a planned development zoning. And planned development agreements, one of the benefits of those where those are required is we require the property owner to designate common areas and common facilities to be owned by an HOA, and that the HOA have the power to require everybody in the subdivision to be a member and to lien its members and to repair facilities that are for the benefit of everybody. And that's in a PD, which then becomes enforceable, a PD agreement, which becomes enforceable by the city as a matter of code enforcement. There isn't that preset requirement here. So, one, it could be hard to condition a variance on that kind of a maintenance issue because there is no pre-existing PD agreement that requires it. Two, if the applicant were to show you the existence of HOA documents today, it's not out of the question that the HOA dissolves,
Yeah.
which would create the maintenance issue that you're concerned with in the future. The last thing I'm confused about is these are rental homes,
Yeah.
but are they going to be sold to different property owners and then rented by them, or is there anything? I mean, because there's no HOA, I don't think, if there's just a single property owner.
I would have to look into that.
Yeah, that's what, quite
Yeah.
frankly, I was going to ask that same
Yeah,
question.
that's the
Yeah.
same thing, because I know with the HOA that's in existence, but it's not for rental properties there. Each homeowner would be responsible for anything that goes on with the fencing. Like during the last storm, we all had to repair whatever damage occurred.
A subdivision could be developed with an association and recorded in the public records documents that require that HOA to repair fences, even though they're on private property, and to be given an easement for purposes of maintenance and to have the authority to impose a lien on everybody for the cost of repair. My only point is, you could move in there as a homeowner and then you'd be subject to that. It's a little bit different question to ask if the city can rely on that on an ongoing basis for
Rental.
guarantee of maintenance.
Well, even if they're rentals, the owner of the home would be part of the HOA, I would assume. But if this is not a planned development, the HOA could fall into disrepair pretty quickly, and now we have how many feet of fence that blows over the next storm and it just lays in that swale, and everybody's like, it's not my deal.
But I guess my question is, so if we are in disagreement about the 8-foot, the 2-foot, addition, tomorrow they could put up the 6-foot anyways. So I think if we are, we're not approving the fence or not the fence, we're just approving the additional 2 feet, right? And so if we had some concerns like that, I think we'd be better off, and maybe we can't do this, you can tell me, approving the 8 feet, but with conditions, because if we don't approve the 8 feet, we wouldn't be able to get any conditions, and then all those things could happen. It would just be a 6-foot fence, or is that incorrect?
That makes sense, Madam Chair. Yeah, so to be clear, if you approved the variance, and if there is this legal stormwater issue that I had mentioned and that Mr. Harshaw repeated, they couldn't get a permit for it anyway. That would just be something the city can enforce regardless. And if you reject it, they might still have that issue. I don't know if they have that issue or not. And then whether an 8-foot fence is more likely to be a wind load issue or not, there's wind load requirements for any structure that I think are analyzed at the time of building permit application. So those would not be waivable. because they're building code requirements. And there hasn't been a request to waive those in this variance application.
Yeah, I guess for me, so I'm not saying I'm a proponent of the fence or not a proponent of the fence, but to me, they're requesting the 8 feet because they're allowed to put up a 6-foot fence in that exact location, but they're requesting the 8 feet because there is a topographical, 2-foot dip. So it kind of, by putting the 8 feet, it puts them in the same position as if it was flat and there was a 6-foot fence there. So I guess while I agree with everything you said, I'm just looking at it from that narrow perspective, but I don't want to be too narrow. So if I'm being too narrow about that.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable analysis. What's the topography of the properties on the other side of the fence?
Pretty
And
flat.
what's the distance
Yeah.
of those homes from that fence? Would it,
Those homes are very close. Some of those homes are very close. The ones that have the back end of cul-de-sacs, you can see from the aerials.
Yeah, it's 'cause those that
Some
that
of
are
them are
getting
close, some
built are
aren't.
higher. They're like this, and then the older existing ones are like this. And so if you put the 6-foot fence there, maybe the older homes couldn't really see these people, their junk in their yards, but these people are going to be able to see the junk in the yards of the older homes.
What's the estimated cost of building this fence?
I think it was around $50 a linear foot.
Yeah, so you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars. I mean,
I think it was
a lot.
about $70,000.
$70,000, $80,000. And that kind of investment isn't going to happen if it has no benefit at 6 feet versus 8 feet. For them, put that much money into a fence, it doesn't work for what they want.
one other thing I want to point out for the benefit of the board members, and it might or might not be relevant, but somewhere it was discussed how this is going to be a rented community. And unless there's private covenants that would prohibit owner occupancy, which I doubt there are, one or more of those units could be homeowner occupied in the future. But so long as those units are rented and not owner occupied, code enforcement is a more effective tool because there's a limitation under the Florida Constitution on the ability to impose a lien, including a code enforcement lien, on homesteaded property. You can only homestead property if you're the owner and you live in it. So if there was a code issue in a rental community, as long as it was a rental community, because fences had blown down, there's more bite to the code enforcement action against rented homes than owner-occupied homes.
What is the fence constructed of?
PVC. But I've seen 8-foot fences go in, and actually where the lodge pole is, PVC lodge pole, it's an actual metal pole within that PVC bracket. So each 5-foot distance, it's a metal pole that went into the ground. So it's pretty structurally sound.
Yeah, it's always the slats in between that I see that just, because,
Yeah, those little panels, they can pull
yeah,
out.
they just,
I mean, even at 6 foot, I mean, gust of wind.
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I, as Mr. Betts was saying, it's gonna be in the swale, it's gonna be white PVC.
Tan.
I'm constantly pressure washing my white PVC that my neighbor put up beside because it, mold and mildew and everything else. It'd be the same with a 6-foot fence as it's gonna be if an 8-foot fence.
Right.
I mean, I clearly probably like Mr. Betts' idea of maybe some natural versus a big PVC, but again, we're voting on 6 or 8 feet. If there's a swale and, 6 doesn't make sense, as Mr. Betts said, why are you gonna spend $70,000 on a 6-foot fence if it doesn't really get you where you're at? I mean, what are we talking about? 2 feet in a swale, you basically have a 6-foot fence,
Yep.
so.
Yeah. I mean, I personally dislike also all the white vinyl fences. So I agree with you. Can you tell me one more time in your own words why that drainage swale is there in the shape it is and in the location that it is?
if I had the civil plans on me, I could tell you a little bit better, but I want to say the way the lots are designed, I want to say they're a B-type lot. So it breaks in the middle. You have the front half of the lot going forward, second half of the lot going backwards. So that drainage swale is there to capture the water coming off of the roof, the impervious water, and also the lot draining water going backwards into the swale. And it is designed a certain way to flow to either the canal on the roadside or to dissipate into perhaps maybe a yard drain downwind, downslope.
And, is that dip, is that like you couldn't have built it straight? You wouldn't have been allowed to?
No, it's designed per an approved set of civil plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, was this the first testimony? Because I was missed last week,
Yes.
last month.
So you have missed nothing.
Okay.
The case was read into the record, and because there was nobody, the applicant was scheduled to be here. Maybe it was a scheduling thing.
Okay.
And so there wasn't an applicant here. So we on our own decided to continue
Didn't know
it.
if I should abstain or not, but okay.
No, we have not heard anything from the case other, than the reading into the record. And I believe the packet hasn't even changed. We're each using our packet from the time before. So, are there any more questions? We can see if anybody from the audience is here, and then we can always come back to questions. Is there anybody in the audience to speak one way or the other? No? Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I just think there's alternatives that they can do to meet code, not divide the properties off and have it look a lot nicer.
By the way, you raised the property, is this in a floodplain?
I'm sorry.
Is the property in a floodplain?
I would have to talk with our entitlements team, but we don't typically build anything within a floodplain.
Many developers, when they're building their retention ponds, whatever, are laying property down to get out of the floodplain. So that's why I was curious if you laid the soil down to raise the houses up, so you're outside of the floodplain, which is logical.
I would assume yes.
That also makes it higher and makes it bigger runoff, but yeah.
It's all built on fill.
I pulled up the plat for Champions Quarters on the Clerk of Courts, the Clerk of Courts website.
In the packet.
Right, and yeah, it is actually the same that's in the packet. And one thing I wanted to point out is there isn't any easement shown on the back side of these lots. If there needed to be an easement to the city, then we would have required that in the plat. And so there is none.
And I don't believe it's in a floodplain, a flood hazard plain. I believe it's in an X zone.
Okay.
So if we made a motion on this, could we make the motion to condition that, like the fence is only going to be in the place where it dips into the swale, because there's it's hard to see, what's what out there, right? So I didn't get out there and personally measure it. But it would be along this entire row.
Lots 1 through 20.
Yeah, those are these, right?
Yes, the northern. Yeah.
Till the curve happens. Okay.
Yes, you could do that.
Any more questions or comments for the board, or is there any motion?
Yeah, I'm struggling with, as Mr. Betts says, I just think that you've put it in a swale, there's overgrown vegetation, everything else. I just think this fence is just not going to look real attractive within a very, very short period of time. And I think if it's rental units, they're just not going to maintain it. It's going to look, even if you got somebody out there that's like, hey, my fence looks really, really bad, white vinyl, how many linear feet are we talking about? Roughly?
20 lots, 50-foot lot, so 2,000.
Half a mile.
It's a half a mile of fence. Yeah.
They can save money on building less fence at the top of the thing, 6 feet high, and put some trees in between.
Be better for the animals.
Yeah. Just a half a mile of white privacy fence inside a ditch.
I wouldn't say it's a half a mile. I might have overestimated right then.
See a deer, a bear, whatever.
Yeah,
It's 2,000 feet.
Run.
it's a lot of fence. A lot of 8-foot fence, even though it's in a swale, it's still 8 feet tall. it's a, you know, it's a wind concern as well. And I'm seeing it pop up everywhere. All these newer subdivisions, they're putting up white fences everywhere, and it just, yeah, I'm struggling. Thank you.
I'm also struggling with that. I just don't, I don't feel that we can prevent the white fence, so,
Nope.
So is there, if I may, is there anything stopping us from putting in a 6-foot fence right now?
Right, well, that was my question, so, and it doesn't seem like there is.
If there is based on wind load or conflict with the stormwater management plan, that would be something that you're not really being
that's on
asked to
our
review and would need to be addressed with the building department.
And then also, if I may, I guess one of the issues at hand is the maintenance of the fence. If we were to install a 6-foot fence, it would still require the same amount of maintenance as an 8-foot fence.
Yes. I just think there's
Yeah.
an alternative to
Sure.
us approving a variance for them to solve the problem they're trying to solve.
If we
There's a
say
bet-
no.
If there's a better screening alternative, why should they have to do a variance? That's where I'm at. For the height.
I mean, that is an argument, and like, I'm there with you. I just feel that if they were required to put this thing in that, takes away 2 feet of height, we're really just giving back what everybody else had, even though I hate the whole concept of the fence, but I don't necessarily want to punish them because the topography is different. I mean, I wish you
That's
would.
the only
put
way
it-
they were gonna be able to build it, was
I
to
guess,
fill in the rest of the area and have it drain in that way, in that manner.
right.
My common sense says if we don't build it in the swale, okay, people are more likely to maintain it. If I have to crawl down into a vegetative swampland, I'm less likely to maintain it. And I just feel like your argument was, well, if we put it up, we lose X number of feet of lots. And, to me, that's not really a hardship. That's, we're moving it off the lots per se, or putting it right at the end of the lot. But you're creating, I think, the way I just keep seeing this, it's like a maintenance issue. Who wants to climb down there? Is there snakes in there, et cetera? But if it's sitting on green grass, we're all good. But if it's not on green
It
grass.
is sodded, so it does look pretty decent. Also, the soils in the Champions Quarter subdivision perk very well. And actually, I've been out there numerous times after storms, and I've never seen something on just soaking wet soil back there.
Yeah, just, is the swale going to get mowed? I mean, is it,
That's the homeowner's property. So.
Yeah, I kind of see it almost the opposite because, like, nobody puts the fence higher. Everybody wants to put the fence right on the property line because they want to take most advantage. But if you did put the fence in more, nobody's going to go behind there and mow and be like, "Oh, that's my property."
Then that would be a maintenance.
Oh,
I
no, no,
better
no,
go
no,
mow.
I
had
wish I would have seen the pictures. Well, you all put the swale in, right?
We bought finished lot deal from Anad Jabalia. So
So
he carved the swale.
he
Yes.
created the swale.
But
I'd have been
the
curious to know what it looked like before it was, I guess it was flat at that
the
point.
swale is required, right? Like,
Right, stormwater.
okay, we think it is probably okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand how it's required if it's not shown on the plat, but.
Okay.
And that may have been an error on the part of staff in approving the plat without an easement, but
Oh, because there normally would be an easement there. Okay,
there would
I
at
see
least
what
be
you're
an
saying now.
easement across drainage easement
Yeah.
for the owners as part of the stormwater management
Okay.
plan. I don't know why.
I guess that's what I was initially asking because, sometimes the property lines don't even necessarily go if it's like, a backwoods type of easement, or in a PUD, sometimes that is not part of the property. It's just dedicated to the subdivision, like you were saying. So what type of subdivision did you say
This
this
is just
was?
a straight zone
Oh,
subdivision.
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can tell you that ordinarily if staff were to ask me whether pursuant to a stormwater management plan, they should be requiring drainage easements for the benefit of the lot owners, I would say yes, and the land development code contains language to that effect. They may exist, I don't know, maybe staff was satisfied they exist, in the form of the declaration of covenants, if there is one for the HOA.
Okay.
But normally I would expect that to be reflected on the plat.
And I felt like the way the packet was worded, I took it to mean that, the swale was required. But for me, like everything, my decision is definitely going to hinge on whether the swale is required or not, right? So for me, that's like a deciding factor. And if we don't know, then I guess I would have to, I wouldn't be able to vote for it if we just don't know and we think you might have put it there yourself. So do you have anything, with you that shows
Hey,
that?
get my laptop.
But maybe others aren't having that issue, I don't want to, or if we have another motion on the floor, we can just vote on it, I don't want to detract from, but for me, that's what it all hangs on.
Are we at the point where we have some unanswered questions here, and maybe it'd be smarter if we maybe looked at continuing the case to try to develop a little more information? Would anybody,
I wouldn't mind it if they want to bring back some more answers for us as the applicant. And maybe staff
I have
could.
the grading plans on my laptop. And
Well,
I don't want to
it's,
delay.
we don't have them though.
Yeah.
And they're not part of the record.
Gotcha.
If
it's
you want to
up,
make them part of the record, you can postpone this for 30 days and put that as part of the record.
Okay.
so we've done this before, and it's up to you if you want us to, try to force the vote today. But it's, it's up to you guys to make the argument. You have to kind of give us the tools to like help you, and it does sound like there's some unanswered questions. I don't want to waste anybody's time if you think that no matter what, it's not going to hinge on the questions that we can pose. If you've made a decision in your mind, then we don't have to bother with another 30 days. So.
Well, it's not just me. I think everybody has to answer that question themselves.
Right,
Me,
exactly.
Not so much.
It wouldn't matter either way. Okay.
Not so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it matter for you?
Go ahead and ask that question on the mic, Madam Chair, please.
Would it matter for you? I guess I'd like to know from the board if it would even matter, if there's unanswered, if you feel that there's unanswered questions, we can ask the applicant if, he'd be willing to get us those answers and come back. But if we feel like there are no unanswered questions, then, then we'll just go to the motion phase. And, we don't have to take up everybody's time. You guys can move on with your development, and we can move on to the case next month.
I feel like there's still unanswered questions
Okay.
that I would like to know.
So unanswered questions, no unanswered questions. Mr. Betts?
I'm ready to vote. But
Okay.
I have unanswered questions. I think my biggest one is that it's the continued maintenance of the fence. And that's the part that scares me. There's a homeowners association already established. It's, I know that it can be dissolved at a future date, but a lot of times once homeowner associations start going, they usually stay in effect for quite a period of time. My concern is a hurricane comes in, you guys have moved on. I got a fence all falling up well, yes, you can go tomorrow and build a 6-foot fence. I just, when I'm doing a variance, I try to not create a problem. And I feel like with 8 feet, it's more of a wind load. I've been in the insurance business all my life. It's 2 more feet of wind pushing up against 2,000 feet of fencing. I just, I think there's more unanswered questions for me that I think maybe you all could develop a little stronger case for why you're asking for this.
Okay. Mr. George?
I'm prepared to vote. It seems like some of the questions that we're asking, it seems to me like maybe out of our purview of what, the maintenance of the fence and stuff. I don't know if that's under our purview or not, whether or not we like the white PVC fence or not, or,
Right.
Whatever type of materials they decide to use. So I'm prepared to vote.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it was just the swale, because if you could tell me that there are conditions beyond your control that required you to put this thing in, and that's why we have to give you the extra 2 feet, does that make sense?
It was designed per the engineer, and I'm sure that I'm not no engineer, but the drainage calculations in order to have the water drain off of the lots, I'm sure a swale was needed. But
Okay.
I would need to have a set of grading plan.
So, I mean, what do I do now? Like,
Well, you can ask for a motion to be made. Usually
Yeah.
motions are made in the positive.
okay,
The one
right.
thing that I'm really, normally I can help you phrase a motion, and you were
Right.
asking earlier, Madam Chair, if it could be a condition of a variance granted that the fence not be, I'm going to articulate it in my way, too elevated when you say measure it against the homes that are being built, but I don't know how to,
Condition.
I don't know
that,
what
right.
the,
Right.
would the stipulation be that under any circumstances, the fence couldn't be more than 6 feet above base flood elevation, which, you know, I don't know how that would be measured
Right.
and implemented, so.
But you get totally what I was asking, yeah.
But I mean,
yeah.
if you wanted that to be part of your motion, I can't help you phrase it.
I just wanted to make sure that if somebody did make a motion, that the fence didn't go from, you know, being in the swale, and that's why we're given the 2 feet, to all of a sudden being 2 feet in on the property line and becoming, you know, what's effectively a 10-foot fence, yeah. And so absent all those things, I just couldn't support it, I guess.
And are you testifying that the property line where the fence is going to go is down at the bottom of the swale, the
Correct.
lowest point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was all hard for me to like 100% tell between like the picture and then looking at the property.
Yeah, I mean, as I look at both of the actual pictures that are in the package.
Right.
The photographs, I mean, and put myself on either side of the fence in houses, I would appreciate the taller fence there, so that to give it a little bit more privacy there.
Yeah, and so that's why I guess I was asking, because like, why is the construction fence there? And that is definitely not the lot line. You know, like there's the construction fence, but that's for sure not the lot line.
We
This is
we
the
put
lot
up a
line?
silt fence to
Okay.
prevent erosion measures.
Okay.
It could be on the lot line, it could be off the lot line, it could be right behind the house. I mean, it's just to not have sediment washing away and
Could I ask
creating
the-
further problem.
Can I ask the gentleman a question? I might be
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
help you
please.
phrase the
Yeah,
motion. Normally, what's the commitment to locate the fence in terms of how close it is to the property line? Like within 6 inches or a foot or,
We have a surveyor come stake out the property line, but of course there was a comment about existing trees there. Wherever the stakes are, we will follow that property line going all the way down, and if there is an immovable object there, then we will jog that around and return to our natural path along the property line.
I don't have anything that I can offer the board, I'm sorry.
What did you just say?
I don't have anything that I can offer you.
Oh, okay, okay.
Well, because if you're going to have to jog the fence around a tree, what if it's a 20-foot oak tree?
Right.
And that fence ends up being pulled 4 or 5 feet into the
Exactly.
property line.
And it ends up
Is that
looking
also
bad.
8 feet? What would the height be? in terms
Exactly,
of
and I
the
didn't want that
appearance
to
the
happen.
neighbors?
But conversely, I felt that they can probably put up a 6-foot fence anywhere. They can do all those weird things with the 6-foot fence. So if we allowed the 8-foot fence, then we could put conditions on it, right?
I'm ready
Does
to
that
make a
make
motion
sense?
with
Okay.
some conditions that might be helpful.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's hear
I
what
was,
you have to say.
I was hoping Mr. Betts, with his prior background, could jump in
Yeah.
and state some conditions since
State some
they
conditions.
involve potentially,
Okay.
measuring things, so.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance for Garrett Kavanaugh of D&R Horton Homes, case
Get my
BOA
note back.
2023-002, from Article 6, Section 6.8.C.4, with the following conditions. One, that the fence be placed outside of the swale. And that's it, outside of the drainage well.
So that would be an 8-foot fence outside of the drainage swale?
So that would make it higher.
They can put it up at the top.
Okay.
Then like she said, that's giving them really, it's,
That's the motion.
Okay. Okay. So do I have a second on that motion?
can we specify how far outside?
It's that gentleman's motion.
Okay. Right. So
I'm happy to specify that.
Oh,
There's a
Okay.
drawing in the plan. Let me see the plan. Do you have it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. All right. Oh, I flipped it already.
so like I'm thinking like here's the property line, but it could be here, it could be there. I don't know.
Is it permissible for me to?
Let's just go with that it be placed outside of the swale to the top of the slope,
Okay, okay.
at the top of the slope of the swale.
Outside of the swale at the top of the slope.
I have a question. Do we know what the grade difference is between the bottom of the slope and the top of the slope?
It just said like 12 to 24 inches. Is that what you mean?
It changes. It depends on where it's at.
Is it going to be,
As it's further one way, it's lesser than it goes down towards the road. It gets,
is it going to be at least 12 inches?
oh, it'll be about, I would say 15 to 20 feet.
The change in the grade from the bottom? of
Oh,
the
no,
slope?
no, no, no. About I would say 3 feet in grade.
Okay, well, all right.
Oh, you mean up this way?
Yeah, towards the
Oh, I
homes they're
thought you
building.
meant like along the line. I thought it meanders 12, it's not always 24 inches along. Is that what you were saying, or did you mean this way?
Well, I was just wondering if, for example, you knew that the location of the fence would then only be a foot lower than, than where it would normally be. Do you want to make it a variance for a 7-foot?
Exactly.
instead of an
That's
8-foot?
exactly where I was getting at.
Or they
Yeah.
could put in a 6-foot fence, like I suggested.
In which case, they wouldn't need a variance at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it makes their choice.
Can I ask another
Yeah.
question?
That motion, if I can, that motion would allow an 8-foot fence in that location.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right, and it would allow a 6-foot fence, whatever they want to choose, but it would allow an 8-foot fence.
So the the properties are rental properties. Who's responsible for lawn maintenance?
The owner.
The owner. So wherever we put this fence, right, the owners would be responsible for somehow getting around that fence
The owner of each
to
lot.
go. Yeah, the owner of each lot.
Okay.
This is.
I thought we said the
I-
HOA was responsible for
For
the.
maintenance of the fence.
Down, he said, if the fence falls down to it, bring it, repair it.
Seeing there's no second, I'll rescind my motion.
We were still thinking on it.
Well, if you want to think on it, that's fine, but.
Is your question
Because,
answered?
see, I was
Yeah, my-
confused.
you know,
They
just-
called it a rental community.
just-
I'm
right.
assuming the rental community means common maintenance, so if
That's
it's
what I
not
thought
common
too.
maintenance,
That's why I asked that question.
then there's no common maintenance. If each individual lot owner has to maintain it, then that's not, I don't want that long a fence that way. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that
rescind my
doesn't make
motion.
sense 100% to me. And that's also why I was asking if it's a rental, if the rental people could put up their own fence, because to me, allowing you to put up however long the fence is at least more consistent than everybody putting their own fence up. So I guess that's another unanswered question, is who's really putting up this fence?
Yeah, but if
Yeah.
the back fence is going to be a solid fence, right? Vinyl, solid fence the whole way around. And I go in and rent a lot, and I have 2 dogs, and I want to hook up to the back
Yeah.
fence, I guess they have to say, yeah, you can hook up to it, but I'm responsible for that side
Sides,
fencing to come
right.
around. So, and if we move, just keep in mind, if we move from the swale or wherever, the owner has got to get around that fence in order to
Exactly.
maintain it.
Right,
It's going to
no.
look awful
Right,
Right.
right.
from
No,
the people from the other
I
side.
agree, and I'll rescind my motion because of that.
Okay, so you're officially rescinding your motion. Okay, do we have any other motions?
I'll make a motion that we approve BOA 2023-002 as submitted.
Second?
A roll call or a poll of the,
Mr. Connors?
No.
Mr. Harshaw?
No.
Ms. Barhoot?
No.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Betts?
No,
Chairman Bowler?
no.
Did not pass.
Okay.
1 to 5.
I'm sorry.
All good.
So, I guess you go on and you can maybe do the 6-foot fence. If you do want to come back, what are the rules? It's like a 6-month thing, or?
It's 1 year, I believe.
Oh, okay.
1 year.
Yeah, I think it's 1 year.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
All good. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, who wants to be the next person on the chopping block? Ms. Groom, could you read case, I guess it would be case A for new business into the record?
BOA 2023-004, variance from Article 4, Section 42B3. A request by certified building contractor Dennis O'Neill on behalf of Mitchell Farbstein for a variance from Article 4, Section 42B3 of the City of Daytona Beach Land Development Code to decrease the required rear yard setback of 25 feet to 21 feet and to decrease the required side yard setback from a 50-foot wide lot from 7.5 feet to 6.9 feet. This will allow recently constructed 420 square foot attached garage to encroach into the required rear and side yard setbacks. The property is located at 115 Milton Road, parcel ID 532204130060.
Thank you. Is there an applicant in the audience? You want to come up and state your name and address for the record, please, and let us know about your case. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
My name is Dennis O'Neill. I live at 521 6th Street in Holly Hill.
Hello.
I am a contractor for Mr. Farbstein.
I'm Mitch Farbstein.
Could you speak into the microphone so everybody can?
I am Mitch Farbstein, the owner, and I moved into the property at 115 Milton Road. Oh, it'll be 2 years in March.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to please tell us a little bit about your case and why you're here today?
Mr. Farbstein approached me about constructing the garage. We had rough talks about sizes, and the original size was upwards of 28 feet, which we knew would extend too far toward the rear. He has 3 vehicles and no place for security or storage with his house as well. And we measured carefully to come down and calculated that 22 feet would be just enough to get 2 vehicles in the garage. 2 of his vehicles are a little bit above average in cost and value. But with that small of a garage and 2 vehicles, very less limited space for storage of personal items, lawnmowers, garages, or shovels, things like that existed in the garage. And the original survey we had, a mathematical error occurred measuring out to 22 feet, which can cause us instead to be a foot longer toward the back of the property. I've talked to Ms. Phillips before. She said that the city automatically grants a 10% administration approval, which would have given us at 22 and a half feet. But now we're at 21 foot 6, 21 and a half feet. Should be noted that we're not really sure of the accuracy of the survey. We've had multiple tape measuring devices and surveys done. Nobody seemed to come out with an exact number. We're still measuring. Only thing we had to measure off of was the back fence, and I know you don't want to hear any more about fences today. The survey shows the rear property line looks like it runs right along with the fence. And it's all enclosed back there. We really have no place to guarantee that was this. We measured off that fence, and we still come up with 23 feet, 24 feet in spots. Now, the surveyors come back and say it's 21.6. Property value administrator come up and said the garage is only 21 foot long instead of 22 foot long. The surveyor says the lot is 49.99 feet wide, measured, and I guess the city's paper here has it at 50 feet wide. So you know that if it's less than 50, the setbacks are less on the sides and stuff like that. But mostly we've just a mathematical error and we're a foot too long. And I guess we come to ask for forgiveness.
So is part of the issue that it's right on that 50-foot border? Or is that not really?
No.
Okay.
That's not the issue.
Okay.
If 10%
Okay.
Sir, would you mind coming to the microphone? They can hear you, but we record these meetings.
Yeah, I'll try to fill in some of the gaps because
Okay.
I actually live there.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is more
Yeah.
important to me than him. but
Yeah,
it's
fill in the
important to me.
gaps for us. Make
Okay.
a good argument.
So the survey that we have in the backyard, it's 49.95 feet, okay, measured, all right? And so according to your rules, if it's less than 50 feet, then it only has to have a 5-foot setback from the side yard.
Okay.
That's my understanding. We didn't push that because the 10% variance would be given anyway. So that got us to the 6.9 feet, which was within the 10%, and that's the measured side. Where the issue came in at is when Missy asked us to go and measure, what is the distance between the back of the garage to the property line, okay? Which, you know, the property line is a little bit weird to follow anyway, and there's no real markings, there's no string, there's no lines or anything else. But when we went back there, I measured, and I put a copy of my measurements in the package that says the distance of or the length of the house is a certain amount, okay? The distance of my front yard is a certain amount. And when you add all those up, what you come up with is it's 21 feet 9 inches, okay, the backyard. Now, if you take it to the fence, it's the other 8 inches, and it's marked there as an offset, OFF, okay, and it says
I see.
0.8 of a foot, which is 9 inches. So when you consider that when we measured, we went to the fence, we were at pretty much the 22.5 feet, which would have been within the administrative variance. So that's where we are today. And so we're kind of, as Dennis says, asking for forgiveness, but we're not asking for a big amount. It's pretty insignificant, we think, but we understand the rules and we have to go through the variance process at this point.
So if you take the administrative variance, we're really only talking about one foot, like, and then
It's
some?
less than 1 foot,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
It's 8 inches. And, you know, I even asked the survey guy to come back. He said, nah, I'm not going to do it. So when he sent in the final survey, he never came and measured it. He just put a foot in there, or put 21 feet on one side of the garage and 21.5 feet on the other side of the garage,
see
east
that,
to
yeah.
west on the garage.
Not realizing the significance
Yeah,
of that
uh-huh.
tiny thing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to cut you off. Please keep telling
I think
me.
I've
love
made my
details,
peace.
so.
What's that?
We love details, so.
Yeah.
The details count.
The big challenge for me is it's taken 20 months to get this built. It's cost me twice as much as it should have been with, you know, the supply chain, with labor and everything else. Originally, I was going to put a metal garage back there, but because the offsets and everything else, we couldn't. Okay, we needed, as Missy told us, we need to attach it to the house, and it needs to look similar in roof and
Yeah.
you know.
We don't
stucco.
like metal garages. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So I
She knows
lost
her
that
audience.
deposit. I lost that deposit.
Sway me like
You
you
just
don't
hit
know.
the sweet spot.
So I didn't build a metal garage. And like I said, lost that deposit, but that's okay, because it looks a lot better. I know there's pictures in there is before and after and everything else. And we tried to just really improve the property, and that's what I think we did. My neighbors, you know, I went out and solicited, obviously they didn't knock on my door and say, could I sign this? But yeah, my neighbors are all in for it. They you know, they've been back there, a lot of them. And so, you know, hopefully, you know, we can get the variance and everybody's gonna be happy, and, but it's up to you.
Okay. And I like to drive out there because not just to see the property, but really to get like a feel of the neighborhood and what else is going on out there. And not so much like that house has it too and this house has it too, but just the neighborhood in a whole seemed like everybody, it was almost like California. Everybody's like, seemed like they were just kind of built upon each other just a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't seem like, it was like
setbacks are
concrete
not
to
true,
concrete.
that's
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can see how you got into the situation that you described. It seems very, because when I first saw it, I thought, we've built something, like we really don't like when people are building things that they weren't permitted to do, right?
Sure.
But now hearing your explanation and seeing the neighborhood, it changes how it looks. Are there any questions and comments from the board, please?
The way I see it is, if he would have come in for a variance for this, we would have approved it anyway before it got built. just because the way the survey is, the house is at a tilt, I mean, not parallel to the sideline, so. Come on.
I mean, the answer to your question, I don't think we realized until the foundation was put in and the cinder blocks and everything else was there, that we were at this kind of 22 and a half feet from the fence. So that was our mistake. We just mismeasured that.
Is there anyone in the audience to speak for or against? I know what you're here for. Anyone? No? Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve case A as applied.
Second? Do we have a second? Go ahead.
I second.
Second, Ms. Barhu. Okay, Ms. Groom, if you could please poll.
Mr.
board.
George?
Yes.
Mr. Betts?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. Harshaw?
Yes.
Ms. Barhu?
Yes.
Chairman Bowler?
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it turned out great.
Can I make
Nice
one?
addition.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I think it serves its purpose and it's wonderful for my cars. They're very happy.
Yeah,
with this.
great.
Can I make a point, though? What is an accessory building? Can you define that for me?
Ms. Phillips?
We would never
You
try to
come
define
to the
that
right
better
place.
than
Give
the
me one
experts.
moment, and I will tell you how the land development code defines an
Yeah.
accessory.
Because I looked it up. I just wanted to make sure I understood, because with an accessory building, you only have to have 7.5 feet from the back. Okay? It could be an apartment or it can be whatever it is. I looked up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And if it's an accessory building, okay, you only have to have 7.5 feet space to the back. So that's what I'm trying to understand, what an accessory building is.
Right.
Okay, so in your case, you're in a single-family SFR 5 zoning district, and that has specific standards for 200 square feet or less, which allow for 7.5 feet. Because yours was over 200 square feet, it needed to meet the primary structure setback. So that's why you had the larger setbacks than the 7.5.
I just wanted to.
So you missed that footnote.
Yeah. A lot of footnotes.
And
There are.
What is it? It's 875 pages.
Yeah. I can't believe you didn't
I
read the
can't
whole
believe you
thing.
missed the
I
footnote.
read
it is actually a footnote. It's a footnote.
is a
Mr.
footnote.
Gross reads it every night. That's
I
why
do,
he knows
I do.
it so well.
We know it
That's why I
by
sleep
heart.
so well. Yeah.
That's why you sleep so
know it
well.
by heart.
I wake up in the middle of the night.
Thank you all.
citing
Really
it.
appreciate it. Honestly,
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I would say good luck with your project, but it's done.
Yeah, it's done. It's done. The hard part's over.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, case B, please.
BOA 2023-005, variance from Article 6, Section 68C4A. A request by Thomas Huger for a variance from Article 6, Section 68C4A of the City of Daytona Beach Land Development Code to increase the permitted fence wall height between the front wall of the structure and the rear property boundary from 6 feet to 9 feet. This will allow the construction of a decorative block wall flush with the front wall of the structure, extending to the left side property boundary. The property is located at 935 Sycamore Street, parcel ID 533990120040.
Thank you. Mr. Huger? Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Thomas Huger, 928 Sycamore Street and 935. This is my family home. My dad built the house in '61. It's transferred a couple of times, but we purchased it again late last year. We're in the process of renovating the property, and we wanted to enhance it and the neighborhood at the same time. There is a fence there now, which is very unsightly. We've tried to clean it up by putting a screen on it, but we thought that in the scheme of things, we're going to build the I call it a portico, but that's for people. It's a cachero.
Port to share.
Portico. And where you can drive your car under a carport basically, and you're out of the elements. My parents decorated that porch with open block, which kind of highlight, I guess at that time, you know, the architecture of the house. We wanted to continue that on a 9-foot fence that runs the length of the north side of the property. Thought it would really enhance the property and the neighborhood, so that's the intent. And to add to that, there's a pool, and you see the framing for the pool. So with that 9-foot fence, that would really block most of that and give us privacy, and that's the basic
Okay.
reason for it.
Okay. Do you intend, you're not moving to this home, though? You
We're
live?
gonna hold on to it for a
Oh,
while.
okay,
It's-
okay.
It's
okay.
family.
It's a nice big property, yeah.
Thank you.
It's got great bones, like it's a nice, and I have to say, I like your another great property. Okay, back to business. Any questions from the board or comments for the applicant?
Yes, if I'm looking at a picture that I think shows the current fencing, is that correct?
That's correct.
And your idea is taking the block from the height of your roof, if you will,
Yes,
and come straight across. I don't know if that's
That's
north,
cor-
south, east, or west. And what will be going the opposite direction?
PVC fence, 6-foot PVC fence to the east, and then along the east side, it'll be 6 foot. So we'll finish it with a 6-foot PVC fence.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
They ever think about maybe stepping this wall down to 6-foot height, maybe going front? I can understand the design aesthetic you're trying to achieve with what you're doing.
I did
And I think
consider
it's a
that.
good idea. But I'm wondering, could you tell me why not to step it down to 6 feet after a certain distance?
Well, just to give us a greater privacy, and it would be consistent.
Okay.
And so around the rest of the property, the height of the fence will be 6 feet,
Yes, ma'am.
including between, like the neighbor to the north is very close to that property line, so he'll get a 6-foot fence.
We'll replace the 6-foot
Okay.
fence that's there, the
Okay.
chain link fence, with a new vinyl.
Does that neighboring house have a lot of windows facing that way so that if we did approve a 9-foot fence, would they still be able, or do they not have a view to that south property line anyways? Like, there was a lot of brush there, so I couldn't see what was going on with their house. Like, will a 9-foot thing block their view out to the street at all from
No.
their south property line? Or is there not a lot of, windowed living space there? Does it
No,
make sense what I'm
That fence
asking?
won't affect their,
Okay.
their visual,
Okay.
or their vision,
Okay,
or their sight line at all.
okay, yeah. I don't have any more questions. Does anyone else have any more questions? Okay. It doesn't seem like anyone's in the audience, but let's just check to be sure. Is there anyone in the audience to speak for or against? No. Okay.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Is there's a gate in the existing fence there that you're gonna replace this with? Are you putting a new gate in this?
There will be a new gate,
Okay.
but it'll be centered.
Okay. And so that'll have a header, I'm assuming that.
That's correct. Yeah, we'll put columns in, intermediate columns as necessary.
Did you find matching block to the front?
Sir?
Did you find block that
Yes.
matches the front?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
'Cause
surprised.
it's a
also.
unique block.
House was 60s, right?
Yes,
1960.
61.
61, yeah.
I have one more question. So on this aerial, there's when it shows the little yellow property lines, it looks like there's almost like a 5-foot gap between the two properties. Can you explain what
Yeah.
that is?
My dad never, what's the proper term? He never not incorporated, but he pays for it. It's his.
Okay.
He just never had the legal description
Okay, okay.
that described it
Okay.
as a part of the whole parcel.
Okay. Okay. So will it go up and beyond that into that little 5-foot area?
It will be
Okay.
on the north,
Okay.
it'll be on that property line.
Okay.
That north line will be the property line, is the property line.
Oh, okay.
Sure, the existing fence, is that 6 foot there now? Existing?
Yes.
Existing fence?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I move that we approve the request for case BOA 2023-005.
Do we have a second?
I was gonna say second it.
I'll second.
Second it.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
You can go. I've been seconding all day. Go for it.
Right
Mr.
here.
Betts, second. Ms. Groom, a poll, please.
Mr. Harshaw?
Yes.
Ms. Barhu?
Yes.
Mr. George?
No.
Mr. Betts?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Bowler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
All righty.
Have a good day. You too.
Okay, so that brings the official business portion of the meeting to an end. However, I have two things in my notes here. I think Ms. Barhu has made a couple people aware, but Mr. Gentle, who has been sick for an extended period of time, he did pass away recently. And so, you know, it was Ms. Barhu's idea to have a moment of silence for him. If you want to say anything, you knew him better than I did, but, you know, he was a great member of this board, you know, for quite some time.
Yeah, I did make connection with him. I know one point we were in between trying to decide where he was because no one had heard from him, but I made connection with him through his son who was working on a project. But I guess from the time he disappeared, he ended up having a stroke and then heart attack, and then a major heart attack just within the last 4 weeks, which he ended up on the breathing machine for 3 weeks, and they somehow decided to take him off. And I think he just had his funeral last weekend. So I told the son, you know, thank you for the update. We were all wondering what the status was with him, but he did pass, and I just thought it'd be nice if we take like 15 seconds of silence just to commemorate the time that he spent with us.
Yeah, let's absolutely do it.
Yes.
Making us aware of that.
You got it.
And thank you to him for his service, and please give his family our best, you know.
Sure will, most definitely.
Maybe his son would like to
Serve on
honor
the
his
board.
memory and serve on the board.
He was also a visitor also.
Let's
so
do
he
it,
would
let's
know
do
about
it,
the
let's do
different
it.
things.
We'll get you on that.
You are quite the salesman.
Um,
That's a good point. I didn't follow up on that.
But yeah, either way, please give them our best. And thank you for having the idea to, you know, have a moment of silence for him, because he was with us
He was-
for a while.
Always had a great sense of humor.
Yeah,
I
he
always enjoyed
did.
Mr.
I know.
Gentle. It was nice.
He
of him.
did. He was a nice guy. His name fit him, yeah.
Nice.
As far as I know, you know.
Always
Maybe
nice.
his kids would say different, you know.
Yeah,
My dad too. I'm like, he's a nice guy, but to me, you know, he kept me in line.
I'm sure you needed it.
Yeah, I did need it. And the second thing I think we should just bring up today so we can think about it last time, because we were talking about it a little before the meeting, before you arrived, in the unofficial part of the meeting. But we had decided last year to move as a trial the meeting to 2:30 on the same day. And some of us were talking before, you know, just for 3 months and then talk about it again. So I think we talk about it in full next time. But we had some unanswered questions. A couple of us said that this time isn't working so well. You weren't here yet either, so feel free to make some comments. But we were saying we would prefer, the people who were here unofficially talking before the meeting, were saying we would prefer it in the morning to just get it over with. But we know that conflicts with you.
Right.
But does it conflict every Thursday? Or if we switched the Thursday and the room was available, would you be available a different Thursday at 9 a.m. or whatever?
Let me see what I can get arranged, if I can follow back up with him.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. Yeah.
We'll talk about it next time. And we don't want to give you a bunch of work because Miss Phillips was going to look into,
What time are you considering?
6 a.m.
yeah,
Oh.
obviously.
We the only one here.
I'm up.
You're really cutting into,
We had said 9, but
Building open at 6.
yeah,
Somebody will give us the keys.
Who has the keys?
we had said 9, but that was just something that somebody said, and I think we would have to coordinate. You know, Miss Phillips was even going to look into if the room was even available, but we didn't want to. Before checking with you, we didn't want to send you on a mission for that. I don't know how hard that is to look
So
into.
for right now, I'll just check all Thursdays
Okay.
of the month
Okay.
and see what is available.
Let's start with that. Kind
So-
of thinking mornings.
Okay.
What is your thoughts? Because you.
Well, no, I think originally we started off the conversation, if my memory serves me, and it doesn't always, but that we were struggling to get additional board members because it fell in the middle of the day and it's tough, et cetera. I guess my question is, does that alleviate that? And is that maybe somebody who is working, would they say, okay, well, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, that works for me, or no, there's no way I can do that? I don't know. I don't know if that fixes it.
And what are
Right? I mean, I think that's where the conversation started, is we were struggling to get members.
right?
right, because I'm the one that brought it up.
Right.
And I thought
That was you.
that was me.
So
I
so we have
thought
somebody to blame now. Okay.
Yeah, now we know.
there's always something. Usually it's me, according to my wife. If you look at it, if we look at it, that is, would that be conducive to getting more people? I mean, the group in here doesn't have that answer, right? So that would be something that, I don't know who would have that answer anyway. So the next question being is, if it doesn't matter about attracting more candidates, more folks on this board, then it's really a question for each of us, what better works for each of us. So as Trey indicated, I think originally I was looking at getting more people on the board, remembering my days as a working person, getting out in the middle of the day, never worked. So in fact, I originally was talking about moving this back to like 3:30.
Right.
But then we talked, Trey said, and rightfully so, it's bad if we get into 2 hour, we're now into almost an hour and a half. If we get into a 2 hour time block and started at 3, it's 5 o'clock, or start at 3:30, it's 5:30, and that screws up, does that screw up other people's day?
And
What
Miss-
happens at 5 for you?
Well, I'm thinking about Miss Groom, she's pouting because she can't go home, and, I mean, you got to look at those kind of things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. The struggle, and the struggle to get people on this board who are working guys and gals that, hit a clock. It's
tough.
It's tough.
Oh, yeah.
Unless we go in the evening, quite frankly.
Yeah.
See, my main
Because-
thing is, I have to check my schedule, because in the mornings, we start rounding 7 a.m. at the facilities, and you say 9 o'clock, and then I have to
That is
like
still
round
in the
up
middle of
around
the day for you.
8:30 in the
Right,
morning,
right.
Trying to hurry up and get it done.
No, that
That's
makes
what I'm
sense.
saying. Right.
Okay.
That's the only thing. I would have to see who can cover for me.
No, that makes sense. And that's kind of what we were saying before, like everybody's beginning and middle of the day is a totally different, So I think worst case, we just put it back to where it was, and, I don't know. If we,
That wouldn't be my vote, but that's another
It wouldn't?
question. No,
what
because
would be your vote?
keep it to where it is now.
Oh, really?
The
Oh, my
reason
God.
being is when we set it at the middle of the day, it screws up the majority of your day.
I get what you're saying, but for me, 2:30 is the middle of my day, because I can
What do you
work.
get up at? No.
I can work into the night, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, when I get out of bed at 12:30,
and it's not about me, but like, for me, that is right in the middle of my day. It actually makes it hard for me to like have like I don't actually work as like an attorney every day anymore. So
Oh,
yeah, so
I'm not going to go
yeah,
there.
yeah. don't. It doesn't.
so you're saying 2:30 is worse for you than 1 o'clock was?
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
think it could be worse. But it's
Yeah, I was
worse.
gonna say, how did that happen?
But it's fine. I'm gonna deal with whatever, and then if I stay on, let's not make the decision.
Well, I
because
mean,
of me.
you're the chair.
But everybody's coming, but I'm looking to pass that bag along, you know?
Oh, we know. Oh, we know.
What's today?
I thought you brought that up
It's
a
like,
couple
we know,
of
we
meetings
know.
ago.
She's-
I'm starting like my retirement early.
Actually, I've been looking, and she actually has her phone, there's a clock down on it.
No.
Are you here tomorrow?
So you're saying that
Sit with me.
2:30 is worse?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would then at least move it to like 3:30, but then I understand then it conflicts with other people, so.
Ms. Groom, what time do you leave?
Whatever, they rotate.
I work part-time, so whenever the board schedules a meeting.
What time do you leave work?
I leave usually sometime between 3:30 and 4:30.
See,
Yeah, I think it's
see, like,
5:30.
Okay.
see,
Yeah, that
but
could
see, Ms.
work
Phillips
with that.
leaves at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
But
So we're
I
keeping
can
you
work it
now.
out.
Okay,
It's,
okay.
you know.
Me too. I'll work around
And
anything.
Mr. Gross, when do you leave?
Midnight?
He has a cot in the back.
They make you live
Leave?
here, don't
Leave?
they?
Leave? I'm sorry, I don't.
Do you
I'm
at
not
least demand free rent, you know?
Not familiar with the concept of leaving.
My calendar is flexible.
Okay, okay.
I'm flexible. I mean, if we do it in the morning, I just don't go to the south part
Right.
of the county until afterwards. If I leave early, to
Right.
whatever it takes. I have the flexibility I own, so I can,
Yeah. In all reality,
calendar.
it's one day a month, so.
Yeah, I agree.
right.
So I'll just.
So I
That's why I will work around
I
whatever.
am happy what everybody wants.
Yeah, okay. So you're gonna check, and then you're gonna check on what Thursdays are, just so we can have
What
the
is
conversation and make a vote next time. And you're gonna check if any of those other times even work. But based on what you said, I think 9 then wouldn't work for your schedule.
I think it's gonna be pushing it, to
Okay.
be honest with you, and I don't wanna be late.
Okay, but we'll at least have the conversation next time to decide what to do, because it seems like, we only moved it for 3 months, so we should at least make that next decision.
And Patrick, I mean, there's no issue with tea times or anything, right? You're-
There's always an issue with tea times, but that's not the effect.
Okay,
My issue would be happy hour.
yeah, well, we can bring our drinks
We all
with us.
have, we all have
Is
our
that-
vices.
at what
We all
point
have our vices.
Okay, we're gonna let everybody go home. Everybody's got their marching orders, so we will see you next month. Oh, we have to do a review of the cases, don't we?
Yeah.
I know, you're eyeing me.
That's
Let me look at my list here. Yeah, okay.
Uh,
Review the
continue-
cases, please.
Continued case B failed, 1 for it and 5 against. Case A passed 6-0, and case B passed 5-1.
Okay, thank you. And so if there's no other new business or anything, questions, comments, we will adjourn
Good, Gab.
Thank you.
at
Wanna hammer it,
3:54.
hammer it.
And I